Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to the A24 project here on the Nerd Party Network. I'm Lee Hutchison, and Dallas King and myself make our way through the A24 filmography and along the way bring you interviews with the talent involved in front of and behind the camera. To mark Mubi's release of Aftersun in the UK, I'm joined by Sally Messham, who plays travel rep Belinda in Charlotte Wells' acclaimed debut feature. You can hear our review in episode 153, which also features red carpet interviews with Paul Mescal, Frankie Corio and Charlotte Wells. But for those not familiar with the film, it sees Sophie reflecting on the shared joy and private melancholy of a holiday she took with her father 20 years earlier to Turkey, where they meet Messham's Belinda. Thanks so much to Sally for joining me to discuss Aftersun, but also the brilliant Our Ladies. Enjoy the show.
I'm going out of my mind. All the answers to my questions I have to find.
What inspired you to pursue a career in acting?
I originally did a lot of musical theatre as a kid. I kind of followed in my sister's footsteps. She was the one that started off doing it, and I was a bit more shy, and then I just caught the bug from there, really. But I kind of put myself off it. I wanted to pursue like English teaching, and then I had a really good friend of mine, an actor and a mentor, Geordie Tybee, who we were at kind of like a charity concert, and she did a speech from Educating Rita, the Willie Russell play. And I was just like, I've got to do this. I was just like, it was an unreal watching her do that for me. And then that kind of segued into kind of finding a newfound love of like British cinema, like, you know, you all like 60s British cinema, like Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning, or your Willie Russell things, Shirley Valentine a bit later on, like your 80s classics. And and that kind of triggered my love for film.
Perfect. And how have you kind of turned that passion into a career? What was your pathway?
So I did my A levels, and I thought, oh, why not audition for drama school, thinking I wouldn't get in. I was only 17 when I was kind of auditioning at the time, and thought it was going to be a bit of a slog. But I was really lucky. I auditioned to a few and managed to get into RADA, and started there when I was 18, and had quite an intense 3-year training there. Really enjoyed it. And then kind of did your classic showcase, and third year got an agent from there, and then just kind of started working from the age of 21, really. So I kind of had quite a nice smooth pathway into it, but it was a lot of hard work and a long time in the making, really.
We hear so much about places like RADA. What is like the experience like? What would be like a typical day or week kind of going to a school like that as a kind of budding actress, I guess?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a dream. I mean, you're kind of all consuming. It's like the Hogwarts of acting, really. So you're kind of doing. It depends. There's a lot of contact hours. A classic day, you'd have maybe like a 2-hour voice warm up class, and then you'd have like an afternoon of movement, an hour of animal studies, an hour of speech and dialect. And then when you kind of move into your second year, it's you more kind of put your skills that you've learned into practice. So you'd have like a block of radio technique or film technique, self tapes, and like devised projects. It's kind of more project based then. And then your third year is more kind of full length shows.
But we're also going to dive into things like sort of Our Ladies and Aftersun, but what are kind of some of your like early career highlights? You've obviously appeared on like stage, screen and TV. What have been some of the highlights that you'd recommend people to seek out?
Well, I did not that you can watch it anymore, but my stage debut, actually, I worked with a director called Lindsay Turner, and I did a play called Tipping the Velvet that actually did transfer to the Lyceum in Edinburgh. It started off at the Lyric, and that was incredible. That was like my professional stage debut, and it was I couldn't have asked for anything more. It was just kind of, it was new writing. It was Laura Wade that wrote the play. She was kind of in the room quite a lot, so it was amazing to kind of see a playwright work and kind of write new drafts and things. Just working with a great ensemble of actors on new writing was just awesome. I did. My first screen job as well, I was working with a lot of, I mean, it was, you could, yeah, I mean, yeah, it was, I think probably that was my favorite in terms of kind of learning from other actors. So I kind of worked with, I was playing Anna Maxwell Martin's daughter in an ITV drama when I first left. And it was just a dream to work with her and Siobhan Finneran as well, who I love. There was a lot of kind of David Threlfall was in it as well, just kind of these like stalwart British actors, and kind of my first screen job, just like sitting and watching them work every day and not taking themselves too seriously. It was really a dream start in that respect. Yeah.
What's it like kind of covering, film, TV, theatre? Is that something you've always wanted to do, is kind of cover all of those things, or is there one that you're particularly more passionate about?
Well, I mean, I've been so lucky to kind of jump from medium to medium, but I originally did think I was only going to do like a lot of classical theatre. I started doing theatre and thought that was all I was going to do. And film was kind of this big kind of unknown quantity to me. I loved film, loved watching it, but the actual technique of being on set and kind of I had to kind of learn on the go. And I found myself doing a lot of screen stuff. And I think I love doing film because there's so much to learn and there's so much attention to detail. I mean, there is in everything, but I know, I mean, it's the dream to kind of hop between, but yeah, I do love the kind of specificity of film and kind of watching how a film gets made again and again in the edit, in post, and yeah, kind of everyone working together to get that one moment.
Yeah. My first introduction to you was, and it blows my mind to think about, was like 3 years ago next month at like the 2019 sort of London Film Festival. And for years, I genuinely thought you were Scottish. It's a film I've absolutely loved. When did you sort of first hear about kind of the opportunity for Our Lady? So it might have been 3 years for me, but I feel it's probably been probably almost half a decade for you.
Yeah, God. Well, I was shooting. I'd seen the play, Our Ladies of Perpetual Succor, with a friend of mine, and absolutely loved it. I just thought it was so infectious and kind of energetic and exciting. And we saw it at the Dorfman at the National Theatre. And then I think it was a year after or a couple of years after, I was on set shooting a film, and there was a couple of other actors that I was friends with. One of them mentioned that their friend was auditioning for The Sopranos, which is the Our Ladies' working title at the time, because it's based on Alan Warner's novel of the same name. And I was like, oh my God, they're adapting that into a script. I was like, I want to do that. I want to be in that. I would have loved to have been in the play. And so I rang my agent up straight away, and I was like, I've heard that this script's been bandied around. Who's casting it? Can I be involved? I don't normally do that, but I was like, this is something I just really want to get involved in. And he was like, yeah, you've been availability checked for it. It's kind of early stages at the moment. They're just trying to work out which part you might be right to audition for. And then I ended up getting a self-tape. It was for Fanula. Well, I think it was Orla, but then they switched that, and then it was for Fanula. So I was auditioning for Fanula. And I thought, oh my God, I'm so right for this part. I'm Fanula. This is the perfect part for me. And then they were like, actually, no, we want you to read as Manda. And then I was like, okay, yeah, this is much more suited to who I am. But yeah, I think we all kind of were auditioning for each other's roles originally, and then they just kind of found this alchemy and the right combo eventually.
And how long was that sort of like audition process, from like that first phone call to then, being on set up in like Fort William in Edinburgh?
Oh goodness, it was so long. There was a lot of periods of silence, because there was a lot of talks. I mean, because it'd been such a long process, I think they really wanted to get it right. And there was a lot of tapes initially, and then I met Michael and Caroline, and then the next day, Caroline was casting director, and then I came back the next day, and then there was chemistry reads all day. So there was I remember sat in the American church in London on Tottenham Court Road with loads of other young actresses, and kind of different combinations of us like going in and reading at different times. And God, it was exhausting. And then I didn't hear anything for ages, and there was like lots of rumors and kind of and then I remember hearing that Rona had got offered, and I knew Rona from before. And then you just kind of hear names kind of dropping in, and it was such a long, complicated process. And I did get asked to do some chemistry reads as well, where I think they cast Marley off of as well, who's a good friend of mine. And And yeah, it was a long old process, but it was worth the wait. There was like rumors it wasn't going to get made, and then it did, and yeah, it was just long.
Is there one of those things you're mentally in your head going, okay, that character's gone, that one's gone, and just sort of
Yeah.
almost filtering down going, okay, I'm still in the mix because I've auditioned for this, or, is that
Oh
you kind of
God,
mentally play those games?
that phrase "in the mix" is just such a classic phrase for actors. Like, you're in the mix, you're in the pot, others are not. Like, it's just part and parcel. But you just have to kind of forget about it, keep it on the back burner. And I was just so happy it ended up getting made in the end. Because there's obviously, so much goes into getting a movie made, and I didn't believe it until we were there on set. But yeah.
I'm sure you've heard it all the time, but like as I mentioned, I was blown away that you weren't Scottish when I first heard you speak. Like, was it like from early doors in these like audition processes? Did you have to kind of embrace that kind of Scottish accent, or was it sort of like, no, just come as you are, play this kind of character, or did you very much have to be? We need to believe that you can be Scottish, I guess.
Well, I remember them not putting too much pressure on the initial tapes as to the accent, because they were always going to have a dialect coach anyway. But I was lucky in terms of I've always had a bit of an affinity with the Scottish accent. Something that I actually did a Scottish accent, a Glaswegian accent to get into drama school. I did a piece from a Scottish play by Shannon MacDonald, who's a Scottish playwright. So I don't know. It's just something that's been in my. I don't know whether it's because I'm from not far from the Scottish border. I mean, only a couple of hours. It's just been an accent that's kind of been in my ear quite a lot. I've got a few Scottish friends, and yeah, I don't know. If I love doing accents anyway, and I kind of got used to kind of doing lots of different accents at drama school, because there's not a lot of stuff. I'm from Middlesbrough, and there's not a lot of stuff which requires a specific Middlesbrough accent. So I was always quite used to kind of being quite malleable with my voice. But yeah, I did have a definite kind of idea of how I wanted Manda to speak, and where that timbre came from, and kind of yeah, the bass note that I wanted to come in with. So I was kind of prepared for that.
How much of like Manda can you bring yourself? Like, obviously she's been now in a film, there's been theater, she's like a character from a book. How much can you and sort of informed by, like, how much can you bring to this kind of role, or is it very much kind of set in stone to an extent?
Well, I think there's something you can bring, there's so much you can bring from yourself to everything, really, I think. And that's the amazing thing about acting. It's got to come from you. But yeah, I mean, the book definitely really enriched the characters. So I kind of knew what I was working with. But I also was so drawn to the role because these were girls that I knew. Like, these were girls that I grew up with at school. In particular, Amanda. There's a couple of girls in my year from school that just like certain things they said, just kind of the way that they were within their friendship groups. Kind of, I just knew who they were. I could really draw on those experiences I'd had with those girls from school. And I think that kind of truth really, really helped me embody her in a way.
Yeah. What was your sort of impressions of Manda? I think the more I watch the film, she's one of these like brilliant characters to watch. She's like full of contradictions in this like one day. She goes from being very protective and strong to being very vulnerable and judgmental to snapping back kind of the next day to all is well again. What was your sort of impression of this kind of character?
Yeah, I think that was totally it. I think it was the kind of the contradictory nature of it, the kind of the softness behind the tough exterior. I remember having chats with Michael. We all had like one-to-one chats about our characters, and I remember him kind of referring to he kind of he used like a mafia kind of allegory kind of thing. Like he said that Fanula was like the kind of the godfather, and Manda was kind of the consigliere, kind of, kind of keeping everyone in check, kind of and I think that just comes from a real, that toughness and boldness and fierce loyalty and protectiveness comes from just a real kind of worry of being hurt, being abandoned, her friends being cleverer than her, moving away from her, her losing these women that she'd grown up with. And I thought that was a really interesting kind of balance to her, and something that I really could relate to and yeah, understand.
Yeah, and How was your experience of like filming in sort of Edinburgh and Fort William? I was actually up in Fort William last month for a race, and it was quite real, just like walking through. And I think, was it like the pillbox was just like a shop or something, like just
Yeah.
passed by that. It was like closed for repairs, and it was just like, oh, it's just like a normal kind of place and location. What was your experiences like of shooting in Edinburgh and Fort William?
Oh, it was amazing. I loved it. I mean, I love Edinburgh as a city, but it was just, I mean, you get so much for free. I mean, it's kind of timeless, Edinburgh. I mean, I can't think it would like the architecture and things just won't change for years and have not changed. And there was so much we had, that kind of that bus ride. There was one day where we just on that bloody school bus that I ended up hating because we were on there for so long, but just kind of going around Edinburgh and kind of looking out at all these sites, and so much was done for free. And just imagining these girls from Fort William who kind of, it is a beautiful place, and they take kind of the countryside and the nature, I think, for granted, and they just want to see this kind of vibrant city. So it was amazing filming in both those places, and both beautiful for completely different reasons. I mean, Fort William, again, it's just stunning nature. But you've got this kind of like, parts of it are quite kind of downtrodden, a bit tired and a bit worn, and kind of that having that backdrop against this kind of the towering presence of Ben Nevis is just kind of, it's just a fascinating place, really. A lot of people kind of pass through it, but they don't really take the time to think about the people that are there all year round. It's fascinating.
Yeah. I think people just walk down that high street just so many times, come off the West Highland Way into the train station, stop for a pizza, or just, make the way that feels like no one ever stretches beyond that.
No, they
one
don't.
Street.
They don't. I mean, I remember having a little wander actually up to where I thought the characters would kind of live. And it was very quiet and eerie, and we kind of went out of tourist season, so it was very quiet. A lot of things were closed. We got talking to a few locals, and that was really good to kind of go outside of tourist time.
And what did like the locals think? Because it's very rare like films are being made up there or shot, and obviously it's such a very personal story to there. Was there much like excitement, trepidation about it?
I don't think that to be honest, I don't think they were that happy about this big film. I mean, obviously they were fine, but I think that it was a quiet time for them, and having this big bunch of crew and cast like rocking up and tearing the town apart. I mean, kind of we had a couple of nights out, and it was I felt a bit bad at one point, kind of rocking up to this really quiet town. But when we were doing the kind of festival circuit and a bit of the press, that it was amazing to see a few people from Fort William come and watch the film and say how kind of touched they were, and all the places they knew, and this was kind of their story. They remember going out on the town and these places with their friends, and that was amazing, kind of like bringing, and I think it played at the cinema there as well, so that would have been a really good experience for them. I'm hoping.
I think that was one of the things I loved about it. I mean, I lived up in like Aberdeenshire, sort of like on the other side, and we used to have day trips to like Edinburgh for like the rugby. But like, truth be told, we were just most excited to go from like rural Scotland to like this big city. The idea of this huge HMV that the characters go into as well. Oh, of course, that's where we want to go spend our
McDonald's
money.
and HMV. Yeah.
Like it was such simple pleasures. Like we don't really care about the sport. We just want to go into this big city. And a couple of me and my friends have always thought like we should do like an Our Lady's drinking tour around some of the
brilliant, yeah.
And even my office, for example, is just across from where like was clearly shot for like the opera performances. And then I used to work in that building, Code Clan, that they used as sort of the foyer thing for like the police station, and it was just so surreal to see like places that you work and live in like changed into something completely different. And I think people certainly take pride in it, and I remembered I always felt early on it would be a success, because I remembered sort of sitting in that London screening. It was just one of these sort of like early morning press screenings before like the big screening at night with all the stars, etc. And just people resonating and finding it so funny. And it was like, if a very English audience are finding this very Scottish story funny and relatable, what's it going to be like with a home crowd when it, say, goes to Glasgow Film Festival in a few months? And I remember just being so gutted for so many people when it got delayed. I think it was one of the first films kind of impacted by COVID that is like, I think they were doing a preview of it with all the tickets. Nah, it's got to wait a year and a half. It was frustrating for us, but what was it like for you?
Yeah, God, it was a real shame. We felt like kind of lost a bit of momentum, but on the other hand, it was like having a new release all over again, and kind of, you know, seeing the girls again after such a long time. It was kind of something lovely to look forward to, I suppose, through lockdown.
And is it frustrating even like as an actor? I've always been curious that like when you do a role, it's maybe like this huge role, you know, something you're clearly proud of and could be like that next step in your career. Is it frustrating when people perhaps aren't able to see a film like that, or something that you can share with like agents, etc.? Does it sort of put a little stall on a career potentially?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose a little bit, but I think because it was lockdown, everybody was in the same boat. So, you know, I didn't really have that kind of feeling about it. I was just so happy it had finally got released. So yeah, I think because there was so many other films as well that were in the same position, there's nothing really you can do but kind of plow on and hope that it does, you know, get to an audience once we got out of the situation, which it did. But yeah, I mean, the good thing is it's always there, so it can always be distributed and people can still watch it wherever.
Having kind of followed the film for as many years now, it's amazing how it seems like close you and the cast still are. What was it kind of like to work with everyone, and what's kind of, you see so many of these people, they talk about being a family and carrying it on, but it feels like you guys all are.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, that was the best bit of it. I mean, we're all still super close. I mean, we talk to each other every day on WhatsApp. Like, we've got a little group, and that was the best thing to come out of that film was kind of working with those girls and kind of us growing together and learning together. And I mean, it all sounds very cliche, but it really was. I mean, we were encouraged to, I think that was why the audition process was so long as well. It had to get the balance right. If there was something just off key, then it wouldn't have worked. The film just wouldn't have worked. The relationship between those girls was the heart of the film. And we had like 2 weeks of rehearsals. As soon as we started, we were all kind of living in apartments on top of each other. I mean, we were all meant to live in one apartment at one point, and that wouldn't have worked. But there was kind of two, 6 of us in 2 in each apartment, and we were encouraged to bond and go out, and it was kind of a dream. But when you force 6 very very steadfast, strong, fiery women to get on, obviously there's going to be it was a bit of a roller coaster of emotions. Like we had to kind of carve this lifelong friendship within those 2 weeks, and we had to go up and down. We had to fight and kind of like, you know, go through the motions, and like as if we'd been friends all of our lives. I mean, nothing happened that was super dramatic, but I think we had to go on that journey. Otherwise, we would have been too polite to each other. We had to. Michael was encouraging us to be able to just, you know, rip each other and kind of, you know, have that kind of banter that you would have with your sister, basically. And yeah, so that was an amazing experience, and I'm so glad we had that time. It was such a luxury to have that time to be able to do that.
We've spoken obviously about Michael. Like, it was this huge passion project for, I think, decades. I think that's fair to say. What was he like to work with through this process? Like, I'm immediately want to go back and watch again through this mobster kind of view of the group. But what was he like to work with, and what did you kind of take away from him?
He was great. I mean, he obviously, because it was such a passion project for him, he had such ideas that these characters had lived in his mind for so long. So there was kind of that kind of pressure on kind of upholding his vision, and he was very strong in what he wanted, but he hired us because he wanted us to challenge him. I mean, he really wanted us to, if we weren't happy, to kind of go at it, and for it to be a collaboration. And we had a lot of rehearsal time, which was great. And he really encouraged. He said to us as well on one of the first days of rehearsal, he said, "I really want you all to become filmmakers. I want you to learn about, like, I want you to question everything. I want you to, if you don't understand what someone's doing on set, I want you to go, well, what's this guy doing? What's their job? What's that? Why are we shooting it this way? Why have we got this angle? Why have we got this?" I mean, I've never had that experience since, and probably won't again. I mean, I might if I'm lucky, but it was it was just an absolute dream to be able to learn about the craft whilst shooting a great story. And he gave us a list of he's so passionate about the craft, about how film has kind of transformed through the decades. And he gave us a big list of, you know, these old comedies that he'd like, His Girl Friday and The Apartment, and like why he loved these movies. He'd show us like scenes from these movies and kind of movies that he'd shot from early on in his career and why he chose to shoot it that way. And that was just fascinating, learning about film through a director's eyes. And yeah, that was amazing.
One thing I've always been curious about was like, I'm a big fan of like the song that closes the film, like Edie Reader's cover of like A Big Country. Never liked the original, but love the kind of the remake that she's done. What was it kind of like to sort of shoot? Like it's almost like different parts. Like probably I can imagine it like the end of shooting a certain scene. They're like, okay, we're going to do a little dance number here and sort of like sing along. What was the kind of the logistics of putting together that kind of closing sequence song?
Well, we didn't have a clue how that was going to turn out. Like we were like doing these quite serious scenes at some point. So, you know, like kind of shooting long hours in the rain, and then Michael would just suddenly go, right, get 6 umbrellas, put the soundtrack on. I want you girls to just mime it into the camera. And we were like, what on earth? We're just like pissing about, really. But and I think a few of the girls were like, well, how is this gonna, you know, is this just gonna cheapen the whole thing? But actually, him piecing it together, we grew in confidence with it, and just had a laugh with it. And actually, I think it really does add to the end sequence. It really, really does. It could be quite gimmicky, but hopefully, you know, it's got enough heart underneath it to make sense.
That was one of the drawbacks of that film delay. I remembered me and some friends coming out of that original screen going, oh, where's that cover? And it was just never on Spotify for like up until maybe about last year. And when it finally came out, it was like, that's it, finally dropped and it got shared amongst it. I just think it's such a lovely cover of sort of quite a tired song, I think.
It's beautiful. And Roddy Hart and Tommy Riley, who did the music, they were brilliant. They were just geniuses. And, you know, Michael as well was very involved in the music. Like he had choices, you know, he'd had these songs in his head. He wanted the whole film to be underscored. And he had such like ideas for the music that he wanted for years. And I think, yeah, that song really fits.
It was great to obviously see you recently in Aftersun. And what did you think of sort of Charlotte Wells' script, and how did sort of the role come around for you of Belinda?
Oh yeah, so yeah, that was kind of still kind of during, when was that? When did I get the script? Was it kind of just as it was still kind of lockdown? We shot it during lockdown, one of the lockdowns. So yeah, it was during that time. And yeah, it just came through my agent. Had a meeting with the casting director on Zoom, because everything was Zoom and still is Zoom. And I remember reading it and kind of just being really kind of impressed with just how touching it was, and kind of contemplative, and it was like a memory piece. And I remember I'd never heard of her. She's such a young up-and-coming filmmaker, and I watched some of her short films and I was just blown away with how intricately shot they were. I've always wanted to shoot on film as well, and I remember asking specifically, because you know, when you just read a script, you're like, this has got to be shot on film, and it was. And I was really excited about the prospect of that. And it reminded me a lot of another A24 film that I love called Mid-90s, that kind of nostalgia, that shot on film kind of thing. And I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna, and it was just a real kind of a privilege just to be a small cog in the wheel, really, for that.
Belinda's this like travel rep, and it's immediately, I think, when we're introduced to her, like we see her on this bus rounding everyone up, like it's like anyone that went on like that 90s family package holiday is like, oh, I know that character. She's real to life. What was it like to sort of take on this role?
It was really fun. It was, again, like something so seeped in nostalgia for me. And it was good to delve into something new. And I remember, I think Charlotte had recommended something to the costume designer that I'd chatted to about this. There was this BBC series on in the 90s called Holiday Reps, and
Yes, I remember that well.
Can you remember it?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I watched hours of that, and I was like, oh my god, this is fascinating, and these are real people. Like, and there was this one character in particular, I can't remember her name, but I was just watching her the entire time, and they're such characters, and that lifestyle is so fascinating. So I watched a lot of that.
Yeah. You obviously shot in sort of Turkey for the film. What was it kind of like to kind of make the kind of film out there? What was the industry like there?
Well, it was very tough because at the time Turkey was was on the red list for UK travellers. So it was really strange because it was like the whole place was a film set, because we've shot it in a place called Fethiye in Deniz, which is a very, very touristy part of Turkey on the coast. And because there was no tourists there, it was like being in a theme park with no customers. So it was bizarre. I mean, there was like the odd few expat that kind of were like asking us, well, what are you shooting and all this. But it was fascinating. It was like we had a playground. We were all staying in one of the hotels that was used as the nicer resort. And yeah, it was, I mean, it had its challenges. Working, there was a lot of times we were filming in quite busy areas, lots of because obviously there's a lot of Turkish people still on holiday there. So it was it was kind of like lots of obstacles in the way, but it was really fascinating and great to explore somewhere new.
And what was Charlotte like as a director? How does she work with her actors?
She was just, from my experience of her, she was just really gentle and respectful, and kind of tried to quieten everything else around and just kind of have a little bubble with the actors, and kind of really keep that kind of sanctity in place. And yeah, she was just really fascinating to watch. She was the first female director I've ever worked with on film, which was just amazing to see as well. And yeah, she's got such vision. I'm really excited to see what she does next.
And did you sort of enjoy working with like Paul and Frankie? Like when we interviewed them last month, it was amazing to sort of see like Paul has very much got that father-like figure with them with the two of them together. How did you find sort of working alongside them?
Yeah, they were fab. I mean, they built up such a great relationship. I think they had a lot of bonding time before the film actually started. Paul's just great. He's so generous again, kind of really easy to work alongside. And Frankie was great as well, kind of just watching the way that he was working with her, and kind of just watching their relationship kind of bloom basically throughout. He was great, and his accent was great as well. I remember
it was. When they introduced the film, he was like, "Well, here I am in Edinburgh, like no pressure on this."
It was a really soft. It felt like a really soft Edinburgh accent that he was doing that I've heard before. Yeah,
it was really good. It passed the test here as well, and I couldn't help but like reflect on the two films. Like they both present sort of like working class Scottish characters, like their challenges, like, and equally like kind of like their sadness and relationships or lack thereof. What do you kind of parallels do you sort of see between the two films, and how important is that kind of almost representation of kind of characters?
Oh, I think it's so important to see working class characters, whether that be northern working class characters, Scottish working class characters, just shot in a way that isn't like, just shot in a really beautiful way, like not shot in like a kind of, you're working class, this is a really gritty, raw kind of, in your face kind of cinema. It was just beautiful to see these stories, not romanticized, but kind of just put there in a really beautiful way. I think that's so important for representation. Do you know what I mean? Why do all these like, upper class films have to be totally shot in a gorgeous way? That's why I love The Souvenir as well, because The Souvenir was kind of the antithesis of that. It was kind of like the kind of the grittiness and the dirtiness of those upper class kind of characters and families.
Yeah, and I think it's even going back to like Our Ladies. It's one of those ones you watch and you go, oh, I know those people, I can relate to, that character, or that was my person. That's a person that I knew, that I went to school story. And, it generates those conversations. And, it's not like nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. It's like, oh, those were people I knew, and that's similar to my journey. And, it sparks something, I think.
Definitely. And real rich stories. Yeah.
The film's obviously working the festival circuit just now. What's it been like? Obviously you've not had a chance to see it yet, but what's it like been seeing, getting these rave reviews from like Cannes, Edinburgh? I think Toronto was last week, and now I think in a couple of weeks it's I'm a bit dubious about the wording of it, but a UK premiere in London. Yeah. What's it been like from afar for just now watching it get these rave reviews?
Yeah, it's amazing, really. It was, I think especially because I think it seems like it was such a personal story for Charlotte, especially. It's just, yeah, it's really cool. It's because it's so difficult to tell when you're kind of in the midst of it, and facing all the challenges, and especially in lockdown when you're in such a little bubble in Turkey, and you're just surrounded by all you're surrounded by other people making this movie, and it's just amazing to see it all come together, and that people are really relating to it.
Will you be getting the chance to see it when it's in London next month? Yeah,
I hope so. I'm this is the thing, I'm away working quite a bit at the moment, so I don't think I'll be able to make the film festival, but I'll definitely see it at some point.
Yeah, the film obviously arrives, I think, first in October, and A24 are doing it, and then it's Mubi in November. What was it like to have worked on like an A24 project, especially one that's even been sort of produced by Barry Jenkins too?
Yeah, amazing. I mean, I've always loved A24. I mean, I couldn't believe that they were only out they only started in 2012. I mean, it's incredible to see the growth, how many amazing movies they've managed to make in that short time. I mean, at the time when I first came onto the project, it wasn't an A24 project. I mean, it hadn't been bought by a distributing company yet. But yeah, absolutely overwhelmed to hear that it had, because I love their taste, and I know that they champion great filmmakers, and yeah, just felt really lucky, really.
Yeah. You've mentioned a couple of your highlights. What are some of your kind of favorite A24 films of the past decade?
Oh, this is such a good question. I've got so many. Yeah, well, I mentioned The Souvenir. I loved Under the Skin.
Yeah, that's got to be my favorite one.
Yeah. Oh my God, I remember seeing that. That mustn't have been long after they started.
No, company, it wasn't right? Too long at all.
One of their first ones. Yeah. I loved that film. I just thought it was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. I loved Uncut Gems recently. Thought that was really good. And did they produce Amy as well, the documentary?
Yeah, they produced that. Well, they distributed it in America, and yeah, I think Film 4 here, they tend to kind of cross over a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. But yeah, that, and mid-90s as well. I love the Jonah Hill directorial debut. Yeah, I love that a lot.
It's been interesting sort of looking at your career so far. You've worked with like Edinburgh directors like Charlotte Wells. You've been on stage. You've shot here. What does sort of Edinburgh mean to you?
Well, I feel a bit like an adopted Scot in a way, because I always find myself working there. I worked in Edinburgh a few times, Glasgow obviously, and I remember doing the Fringe one year as well. The whole time I did a rep season with Payne's Plough. I just love it. I think it's so exciting. I think there's a lot of new studios just being built, right? Is it Glasgow or Edinburgh?
Leith is certainly becoming a bit of a hub down there. I think they're working on something there. Yeah, because I think the Lord of the Rings season 2 is coming here, so I think that's going to be very much a kind of big one, it seems.
Yeah, I think it's just so exciting. I mean, I can't wait to see it thrive in the next few years, definitely.
Yeah. And how important is sort of like that kind of the north of England and the Scottish art scenes to each other? It always seems that there's that bit of crossover in terms of talent and kind of working together. How have they kind of helped you get to this sort of exciting stage of your career?
Yeah, I think just kind of being true to the, being true to those stories, kind of, surrounding myself, reading scripts, immersing myself in that kind of scene, watching the films that have been made there. And also there's lots of amazing like theatre, especially Newcastle. I find there's a lot of similarities between Newcastle and Glasgow and Edinburgh. Definitely, I think the people there seem to have quite. I can kind of, the vibe and the people. They're quite a similar. It's quite similar culturally there, I feel. And I love the new writing that's coming out of Glasgow, the Tron Theatre and Newcastle Live Theatre and Northern Stage. I think there's a lot of exciting theatre. They're championing a lot of new upcoming Scottish writers. I think it's just championing those voices. And we can challenge. We can challenge the South. We can. It's much exciting stuff going on up there than there is in London. I don't believe that it has to be London centric.
Absolutely. And what's coming next for yourself? What are you working on at the moment?
So at the moment, I'm working on a Disney Plus a National Geographic series.
Oh, very exciting!
Called A Small Light, which I don't know how much I can give away, but it's basically. Set in World War II. It's about the people that helped to hide the Anne Frank family. It's mainly kind of following a woman called Meep Geese, and I play a character called Bette Voskuil, who is a real life character, who was one of the helpers. Fascinating period of history. And I shot something, actually a lot of it in and around Newcastle that's coming out next year, not sure when, but can you remember the Raoul Mort drama?
Yes, I saw that on your IMDb. Yeah, I remember it more for the Paul Gascoigne tweet. Anything else? That's
everyone asks me. That's the first thing they ask me. Who's playing Paul Gascoigne? Who's playing Gaza? He's not actually. He's in it, but he's not a character in it. Because kind of stranger than fiction, that story, really.
Yeah, I remembered it. It was just the most bizarre weekend, that whole story.
Yeah, it's madness. And I think what this drama is doing is kind of clearing the media buzz, and all the kind of, hoo-ha around it, kind of getting to the bare bones of the story, what actually happened. And, it's very victim-based, hopefully. So that should be coming out. I'm not sure. Maybe end of the year, next year, I'm not sure.
I look forward to that one. And where's the kind of best place to keep up to date with sort of any news or what's kind of coming next?
I'd say probably IMDb, or I'm not really sure, on my agent's page or whatever. Yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you, Sally. I've really enjoyed sort of learning about your experiences the kind of past few years. And thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me, Lee. Definitely, I really enjoyed it.